Hello, hello.
I
Look at every time we have a guest, you have this big smile on your face. You crack me
know.
up.
I mean,
That's too funny.
so we lied to you guys last week when we said we were not going to have a guest. You know,
Well, we kind of lied.
we kind of,
We kind of lied.
but we got a hold of this guest.
Yeah, this is a good one. Round 14 is getting to be a very known name in the boxing community, which
Yeah,
Rick and I are very proud of. But Rick, I'm going to
absolutely.
let you handle the honors with this gentleman here, and we'll
Okay.
bring him on as soon as you're done.
Okay. So I'm going to have to put my glasses on this, and I'm going to tell you this right after from the get go, guys and girls. An hour is not going to cut, so we'll probably have to have this gentleman back. But you can catch him on Randy's Ringside on Facebook Live, usually 2, maybe 3 nights a week. He has a Sirius FM radio national radio show with none other than Jerry Cooney. He is the former New York State boxing commissioner. He's an announcer. He is announced for ESPN, MSG, USA, and the Felt Foreman. He is also a member of the New York State and New Jersey Boxing Hall of Fame. And I could go on and on and on for a very long time, but let's bring in
Gentleman has some resume.
Randy the Commish Gordon.
There he is.
Thank you very much, guys. I guess the term is I'm probably the luckiest. Not probably. I am the luckiest fight fan ever put on this planet. I started out as a fight fan. That's all I wanted to be.
That's awesome.
And I was hoping that, maybe one day I'd be lucky enough to get a ringside seat that would be first row ringside. Little did I know that I was going to have a better seat than that for years and years and years as commissioner in New York, as editor-in-chief of Ring Magazine, doing blow-by-blow for Sirius XM with Jerry Cooney. It has been just an absolute dream. I could just go on and on because who knew in my life, my first sports idol was baseball player Sandy Koufax.
Wow.
And Floyd Patterson, Joe Frazier, Muhammad Ali.
Joe Frazier's my all-time favorite.
And most people never get to even shake hands with their idols, their sports idols, or their entertainment idols, whatever. I became friends with each one of them.
Oh.
And when I became commissioner in 1988, one day, now I had already known Ali from his fighting days. Remember, this is 88. He's already 7 years past his fighting days. 6 years. Yeah, he fought, 7 years. He fought Larry Holmes and then, very ill-advised, came back again a year later to fight Trevor Berbick, something he never should have done. And then in 1988, I'm in my seat in my office at the New York State Athletic Commission, and my phone buzzes, and my secretary said, "Commissioner, there's a gentleman on the phone, says it's Muhammad Ali."
Oh my God. Tony, can you imagine that?
I know, right?
Now, we all do Muhammad Ali. Everybody, you guys probably do Muhammad Ali.
Oh yeah.
So I said, Michelle, I'm really busy. But what do you think? She goes, "I got to tell you, Commissioner, even if it's somebody that you know, he's doing a heck of an impersonation."
Oh my God.
And I pick up the phone. I go, "Commissioner Gordon." He goes, "Commissioner Gordon, this is Batman."
Come on.
You probably knew right there he was real.
I said, "Okay, who is this?" He goes, "Commissioner, this is the champ. This is the greatest of all time, Muhammad Ali." I said, "It certainly sounds like Ali. Okay, who's doing this?" He goes, "Me, Muhammad." And I go, and then because all my friends, sportscaster Bruce Beck, we all do impersonations. We call each other all the time. Me and Al Albert, Steve Albert. So I didn't know, and I talked to him for a couple of minutes before I realized this is Muhammad Ali. And I said, okay, champ, what makes you call me? He said, I heard a while ago that you said about me on the air that I said, man, one day I really have to meet this gentleman. I said, well, actually, we have met before, but it was in just a group of reporters. You know, I was this young reporter in the 70s. And every time I got to see you, I was with some of the greatest writers out there. And I just was kind of in the background, very timid.
Right.
So P.S., he had me come to the hotel he was staying at.
Oh, my God.
And he gave me his room number. I called the room. I went on up, and he had a bunch of bodyguards around and everything. And he said he wanted to have breakfast with me. He said, can I bring up breakfast? And I said, sure. And he had breakfast brought up, and we sat there, and it became a regular thing where every time he came into New York, he would let me know maybe the night before, maybe could we have an early breakfast like 7 o'clock? I said, no problem.
Oh,
Yeah.
my God.
We got together, and he truly became one of my absolute best friends.
Oh,
That's
goodness. What a story.
amazing.
Could you imagine
No. I mean, I was starstruck when I met Layla Ali.
having breakfast with Ali every time he's in New York City? Oh, man.
I mean,
Yeah.
that's just so. In my book, Glove Affair, there's just a lot of stories like that. And yeah, that's me and my love. And
I gotta get that book. I gotta get that book.
I couldn't believe the day that the books arrived from the publisher, Roman and Littlefield. I was just like jumping around. I laid down in bed and I'm hugging the thing, and my wife is taking a bunch of books and just dumping them on me. And we were like two little kids. It was a dream come true. And yet I'm done, just about 98% done with my sequel to it, the follow-up. This first book, as you saw, called Glove Affair. My next one is called Glove Story. And it's more the same kind of stories because I couldn't I have like 15 chapters of different stories in this book.
Right.
Now it's going to be about another 15 chapters. And I'm just finishing up. I just have one more chapter to go, and we are done.
Off to the presses.
Awesome. How long you think before we can look for that?
Well, I don't know, because once it's like making a movie. You can say, okay, that's a wrap.
That's
Boom.
a wrap. It's a year
Okay.
later it comes out.
Then
Yeah.
there's all the editing to do and this and that.
Yeah.
Sure.
But, I could see it on the stands 1 year from now because it goes to the publisher, and then they start saying, okay, the cover of Glove Affair, I designed the cover. I told the publisher exactly what was in my head. And this book came out. It was everything that was in my head, including this cover. This cover is exactly how I pictured the book would look.
That's awesome.
I once saw a couple of boxing gloves put together, and I said, oh, look at that. It's a heart. And I said, that's exactly what I want to do. And I got Tracy Morgan to write the forward.
Oh, wow.
And we've just become very good friends over the years.
Amazing.
That's the only thing I don't know who I would have. I haven't even thought about it, who I'd have write the forward.
Mhm.
But I'm thinking that it might be George Foreman.
Oh,
Well,
nice.
I heard a very interesting story about George Foreman, about you with George Foreman, with you were actually announcing a fight with George, and he said something to you, and I'm going to let you pick up on the story right there because this is your story to tell.
This was about a year before his comeback. And you got to remember at this point, and so we're talking about, he came back in 1987, and this was like mid 86, late 86. I'm down in Houston, Texas, announcing a fight, and they told me George Foreman is going to be your color commentator. I thought, wow, that's great. I haven't seen George in years. So, I mean, I come up to about maybe his waistline.
Yeah.
And at the time, George had been off since 1977, and he weighed ballpark 350, 360. Just a huge man.
Sure.
But during the course of the fight, there were these two nameless heavyweights, 4-round heavyweights, and they're going at it. And I'm sitting there with a headset on, and I'm calling the fight with George. But as I'm calling the fight, I look next to me, and there's George going. And I said, I wish everybody could see what George Foreman is doing right now. George is bobbing and weaving, throwing hard jabs. I said, George, I bet you right now you could get in the ring and beat both of these guys. And George Foreman said, no, Randy, you're being too kind. These guys are professionals. I'm just an old guy. I haven't fought in 10 years. Well, the show ended. And as I hear my producer say, we're clear, guys. Good show. Boom, we're off the air. George and I hug each other. He said, Randy, you gave me an idea.
Oh, no.
An IDEER. I gave you an idea? What kind of idea? He said, you got me curious how I could do in the ring today. I said, yeah. Give me your phone number. I give him my phone number. I go home the next morning. I'm on like a 7:30 flight out of Houston back to New York. Later in the day, my phone rings. It's George Foreman. And George said, remember that idea you gave me? I said, yeah. He said, well, I went to the local army base and they let me in. And I asked them, could I maybe box with the base champion if you have one? They said, yeah, as a matter of fact, we do. And I said, really? How many rounds did you go? He said, we went 3 rounds. I was huffing and puffing, but I did okay. Where you're the first one that I'm going to tell I'm coming back.
That's the story. I heard.
And I said, you're what? And he said, I'm going to come back. Don't say anything because you see how big I am. I got to see if I can work all this blubber off. And I spoke to him maybe a month later. I called him up to see how he's doing. He said, I'm in training every day. My weight is down to about 315, 320, and it's coming off. All of a sudden, I get a call from him. And he said he's going to have a press conference where he's going to be announcing he's making a comeback. He'd like me to be at the press conference. He said, I'll fly you down. And I said, what day? And I said, I'm on the air that day on the Madison Square Garden Network.
Oh, jeez.
He said, okay, but I'm going to mention you at the press conference. And then it was a few weeks later, he calls me again. He said, we got the fight. I'd like you to be at the fight. What date? I'm like, oh, George, I can't believe this is not working out.
Oh.
I am going to be on the air live on USA Network's Tuesday Night Fights. And back then, I don't even know if it was the Tuesday Night Fights because we were on a Tuesday, we were on Monday. We called it the Monday Fights, the Tuesday Fights, the Thursday Fights. And it wasn't until the end when I was leaving that I started the Tuesday Night Fights. So we were on the air, and Brad Jacobs, who is now the director of boxing operations for Top Rank, Brad Jacobs kept running over to Al Albert and I, said, the fight's about to start. And then he'd run back and he'd say, the fight just started. And then he came back. It's over. George Foreman won his comeback fight. I announced it on the air. And it was soon after that he, of course, came out with the George Foreman grill.
Mm-hmm.
And one day in the mail, there's a package. I opened up the package. It was a George Foreman grill.
Oh. That's awesome.
And it was one of the little ones that you could use right in your kitchen.
Yeah, the
Yeah.
folded kind. Yeah.
A couple days later, I get this huge package. It's the big grill for outside. And I actually had both of those grills for a long time before my kids, who were little at that time and everything, dropped one and broke
yeah.
the top of.
Yeah. They
For
worked
my
well.
last birthday,
Yeah, they worked very well.
a friend of mine bought me a brand new George Foreman grill, which I still use all the time. But that's going to be one of the chapters in my book about the greatest comeback in sports of all time.
Oh yeah.
Did you get to
That
watch?
chapter.
Did you watch his movie? The
Oh,
movie,
sure.
Big George. How close was that? It's too bad that your part wasn't in the movie, though.
Yeah.
I know. You can only put in so much. I thought it was pretty. They captured a lot of things about him. He was actually, in the beginning, when he turned pro, George was anything but a nice guy. He was as ornery to the media as anybody I've ever known. And I joke with him because he comes on my Sirius XM show all the time. And I said, Georgie, what made you so ornery in the beginning? Because none of us wanted to go near you.
Right.
And as a matter of fact, when you fought Joe Frazier in the rematch at the Nassau Coliseum, which is only a few minutes from where I live on Long Island, I went over to Gil Clancy, who was one of my best friends, and Gil, who was training you. I said, Gil, what's the story? Do you think I can get a 5-minute one-on-one interview with George Foreman? He just looked at me. He said, not a chance. George told me, I'm not talking to the media. I want them to leave me alone. As soon as I get done working out, they could take their pictures, and then I'm out of there. I'm not doing interviews with anybody.
Wow.
And Gil said, you don't even want to be near him today. So George, when I told him that, he said, I apologize if I ever did anything bad to you. If you know anybody that I did something like that to, I apologize. He said, do you know that for years, I thought that's the way fighters should be? Because in the beginning, I sparred with Sonny Liston. And Sonny Liston told me, don't trust the media. They're not your friends. They're going to want interviews from you, and they're going to write it any way they want.
Right.
And just don't trust them. He said, so I listened to Sonny, and I wanted nothing to do with the media. And, the Ali fight had a lot to do with him changing his whole attitude.
Oh, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And he did a lot of soul searching and so forth. But then say what you want. When he lost to Jimmy Young in March of 1977, George says that he died that night. Now, Gil, who I said was my best friend, I used to have breakfast every single week with Gil Clancy. He lived a few minutes from me. And I said, what do you make of this thing that George says he died that night? He said, you know what happened? He was dehydrated. He came back to the dressing room and he was just laying on the table. And he was as cold as ice. He was dehydrated. And we were dumping water and sit up, and we had given him electrolytes, like drinks with electrolytes. And he went into the shower. We helped him, and he went into the shower, and the shower kind of invigorated him. Well, George says that the Lord spoke to him in the shower.
Okay. They kind of touched on that in the movie, didn't they?
Yeah, they did. Yeah.
But I mean, the way George has told it to me, it's like, if you're a believer, then you will believe him. And if you're not a believer, you're almost forced to believe him. Mm-hmm. And I said, but Gil, he said, I don't care what he said. I was there.
Mm.
And I said, but it's years later, he has continued on this path where he's become a Methodist minister. He has his own congregation. There's not a morning that goes by that he doesn't read the good book. And he's become religious. A lot of us become religious or lose religion. George found it and has become the nicest guy on this planet.
Yeah.
But I mean, the night that we heard that Muhammad Ali had gone into the hospital for the very last time, Jerry Cooney and I were going on the air, and we had an entirely different show lined up. We were 5 minutes away from air, and my producer said, "Hey guys, there's breaking news that Muhammad Ali has been taken to the hospital basically in a coma, that they say this is it. We're going to have to drop the show we were doing. Guys, I'm just going to ask you to fly by the seat of your pants here."
Mm-hmm.
And I said, let's get George Foreman on the line.
Oh, wow. Great idea.
And we got him on the line. I said, "George, it's breaking news that Muhammad is in the hospital, and this is going to be it. Can you come on with me and Jerry?" He goes, "Absolutely."
Mm.
So he came on and we talked about Muhammad. I said, I know you've got some great stories about Muhammad, but as he lays there about to go to his heavenly reward, can you, as Reverend Foreman, say a few words? Absolutely. And he proceeded, and Jerry and I, they save everything at Sirius XM Radio.
Sure.
Almost every year on the date that Muhammad Ali passed, we play that interview with George. And he said he's been to the hospital before, and he continually comes out and he beats the Grim Reaper. But it was just the way he did it. Let us bow our heads and say a prayer for the great Muhammad Ali. And Jerry and I look at Jerry, and he's got tears rolling down his face. I'm crying like a little baby. And we had our phone lines lit up.
Mm.
And we were just going to continue with the next segment. And I said, "Thank you, Reverend Foreman." And we all do pray for Muhammad Ali. We'll be back with your phone calls, which apparently you guys are lighting up the lines. We're going to get to every one of your phone calls when we come back, one after the other. People calling up crying on the show.
Wow.
And I mean, it touched all of us. We got off the air. I was emotionally drained after 2 hours of talking. And then it was just right after we got off the air, an hour or two later, Muhammad finally passed.
Wow.
And I have great relationship today with Rashida Ali, one of his daughters, and her son, Nico Ali, Ali's grandson, who comes on the show all the time. My daughter, one of my daughters, I have 4 daughters. One of my daughters is named Ali.
No kidding.
Oh, wow.
So that's what I think of that man.
Well, you also did something with Muhammad where when you were commissioner, you said to him about the injustice that was done to him when he was banned from boxing, and you apologized. And you said that never would have happened on your watch.
That has to be one of the highlights of my professional life. It was in 1992. Muhammad was being given a humanitarian award. And boy, oh boy, I really wish he was around today, because this world could use Muhammad Ali.
Mm.
And we were at I believe the Pierre Hotel in New York City. and there was about 1,000 people in the audience. And me as commissioner, I was asked if I would sit with Muhammad Ali and I would present him with the humanitarian award. Wow.
What an honor.
So when I got up there, I'm sitting next to Muhammad Ali, and sitting right next to us was the great artist, Leroy Neiman.
Oh, Leroy Neiman.
Oh,
Another connection to the Rocky world.
Tie some Rocky in.
I'm looking up, I wish I could go over and grab Leroy Neiman was sitting there, and I looked at him sketching, and I say, he's sketching Muhammad Ali. After the program, he gives Ali a piece of paper. Ali goes, oh, that's beautiful, Leroy. He hands me one, and he did a likeness of me. He did it in very light crayon, and it looks like it's faded, but he just did it in a light crayon, and it's hanging on a wall. He's also done my wife. You couldn't go up to Leroy and say, do a sketch of me. He'd say, yeah, give me $15,000.
I was going to say, you got an original Leroy Neiman?
Yeah.
Tony, WTF?
I'm looking up at my wall in my office here, and it's got those drawings. But I got up there and I said, silence fell. I said, the commissioner of boxing, state of New York, Commissioner Randy Gordon. And Muhammad gave me a little tap on the thigh. He goes, go get him, commish. And I said, wait till I said, I'm going to rip you, Muhammad. And he just laughed. And I said, it was back in 1967 that a high school senior on Long Island, who was a big boxing fan, was very upset when the New York State Athletic Commission pulled the license of Muhammad Ali when he refused induction into the U.S. military. And Ring Magazine basically kept him in the ratings, but kept him in as Cassius Clay, and had no more stories to really write about him. They just ignored him. I said, of course, 3 years later, the Supreme Court showed just how wrong the legal system was. They overturned his not stepping forward on the grounds of being a conscientious objector. And if you didn't believe it then, it's just like George Foreman when he said he was becoming a minister. Muhammad Ali was a Muslim. And that's what he practiced all his life. And it wasn't that he was afraid, and I asked him about this in our one-on-one meetings, but you knew that you weren't going to be going to Vietnam, because I know a lot of kids in high school who they went to Canada, they got all kind of draft deferrals and everything, but you knew that you weren't going to go to Vietnam. He said, it wasn't that I was worried about that. It was the fact that my country was in a moral war, something we shouldn't have been in. And even though I knew I wasn't going to be going over and being on the front lines, I wanted nothing to do with it. So I refused induction. Well, I told him that 18-year-old kid called up Ring Magazine and spoke to Nat Fleischer, who told him, kid, you're absolutely wrong. He broke the law and has to be punished. That 18-year-old kid called the New York State Athletic Commission, and Commissioner Dooley picked up the phone. I pleaded with the secretary to put Commissioner Dooley on. And why she even did that is beyond me. But she did. And he said, kid, you're basically what I was told by Nat Fleischer, kid, you're absolutely wrong. That we had to pull his license because we're not allowing him to box anymore. I said, But if he wants to go and work in a grocery store, he's allowed. If he wants to work in a tire changing shop, he's allowed. Why would you pull his license to box? It's a job. And
Right.
you're too young to understand.
Mm.
And he basically hung up on me. I said, well, that 18-year-old kid went on to become the editor-in-chief of Ring Magazine. That 18-year-old kid went on to become Commissioner Dooley. And I said, I might have been too young to understand then, but I still don't understand. And I said, I want to tell you something, Muhammad. If I was back at Ring Magazine today, if I was in the position which I am as commissioner in New York, and you were to do the same thing, I would not strip you of your license. I would put you on a pedestal for standing up for your beliefs.
Mm-hmm.
1,000 people got up and cheered. Muhammad stood up, took my hands from behind, raised my hands up in the air,
Wow.
gave me a kiss on this cheek, and whispered, I love you, Commish.
Wow. That's amazing.
I mean, of all the things I think ever done, that moment in time just
Oh gosh, yeah.
You know, I wasn't prepared or anything. I knew I was going to say something, but I didn't prepare anything. It was just a spur of the moment, in a speech on my part, right from the heart.
Yeah.
Well, because you're a boxing fan, you were there. You were trying to get it reversed when you were a kid. You know, you truly love the sport. You truly love the fighter. I mean, you weren't just a corporate yes man.
Right.
That's amazing. What a story. My gosh.
Well,
You know,
having watched your Facebook lives on Randy Ringside and, interacting and commenting with you, I have got to say, you are the most informative person on boxing when you talk about what you're talking about for that night, or when you know what you're talking, there are no misgivings. It is boom. He knows his shit.
it's the one thing I know. My wife will tell you, she will not ask me to hang a photo. She will not say, honey, we got some new drapes. Can you get on the step stool and maybe put the drapes up? Because she knows there's going to be holes in the wall.
Yeah.
And maybe much worse. Maybe, and don't go in the bathroom and fix that little drippy pipe, because that drippy pipe will wind up exploding. Do not even think about asking me to put up some hi-hats, because I'll burn the house down. I do one thing. I am a friend to everybody who wants to be a friend.
Yeah.
I'm a family person. My wife is my high school girlfriend.
Oh wow.
And still is my high school girlfriend.
That's amazing.
We have 5 kids. We get 12 grandkids, 5 granddogs, and just a heart full of love.
Well, you know what I found to be very endearing about your live. Now, I don't have Sirius, so I can't listen to that, and we'll touch on that in a minute. But what I find to be very endearing with your live on Facebook is the fact that you acknowledge your listeners by name. You have acknowledged me by name on several occasions, and just like last week, I asked you a question. I'm like, do you have one moment in your career, whether I think it was either announcing, that stood out the most? And I know I got to you on that because you started to go into thought and you started talking about it. Like you were going to post some pictures or something. Can you expand?
Now, which story was that? Because
You were talking about one of the fights. It was the pre-Olympic fight where there was another fight coming up. It was actually the one with you announced with Mickey Ward. So that got me thinking, because you were announcing a fight with Mickey Ward 2 weeks ago.
2 weeks ago on DAZN.
Yeah, on the zone. And then I asked you, I said, is there one that you have done that has stood out in your mind the most?
Boy, oh boy. I mean, and I'm looking for that one shot. I'm going to put it up against the camera here because Mickey Ward has, I mean, I was ringside for the Gaddy fights. And to think, and I mean, over the years, we've become friends.
Yeah.
When I was the editor of Ring Magazine, you get to interview these guys so many times, and then you see them in settings just outside of the arena, whatever. And how many times can you keep interviewing a guy?
Yeah.
And at the International Boxing Hall of Fame, we used to stay at the Days Inn.
Yeah.
And many of the guys would come down for an early breakfast, and I'd be sitting there with these guys, just chatting, just BSing with them, just two friends totally BSing.
Yeah.
And I am just looking for this one picture, and I'm like going crazy.
Because I happened to work security for Mickey Ward at the last, this past July when the International Boxing Hall had their induction, and then they had the parade, and I got to walk right next to Mickey and Dickie and talk to them while I was working security for them, and so nice.
Yes, I mean, you saw firsthand how nice they are.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Absolutely. He just engages. And it's funny. I don't want to say it's probably the wrong word, but the people in today's day and age who are yelling for Mickey and Dickie on the side of the street, you know, like it's an Ali or a Frazier or a Foreman, you know, they are so thrilled to see Mickey and Dickie.
And Mickey told me it never gets tiring for him. He loves every moment of being in the crowd. And who knows? I got so many thousands of pictures.
That's okay.
I think one of my favorite pictures is what my wife took in the opening on DAZN, me interviewing Mickey Ward. And I said, Mickey, you fought here over 20 times in Atlantic City. And now you're back again. How does it feel to be in Atlantic City again? Oh, Randy, it feels so good. But that is just one of my many just moments that just stand out. But I think, and I'm going to tell this story for the first time. Good. I was on the announce team.
We got an exclusive.
Well, it is. September 16th, 1981, Las Vegas, Nevada.
Okay.
One of the biggest fights of the 80s, one of the biggest fights, I think, in welterweight history. Sugar Ray Leonard against Tommy Hearns.
Oh, that's a fight right there.
Yeah.
First fight. Remember, Sugar Ray Leonard has one loss, which came to Roberto Duran a year earlier. 5 months later, he reverses that. I was at both fights, and I could tell you, oh my God, that I was the only member of the media in Roberto Duran's dressing room.
Really?
Right after the fight.
Hands of stone.
Because he had a horrible entourage. And I made sure I sucked up to each one of them. And I gave them Ring magazines, Ring magazine hats, Ring magazine shirts, Ring magazine key rings. They each had something from me. They got to know me in the week I was in New Orleans. So I did get to go into the dressing room, and the stuff that I saw in the dressing room is also going to be in Glove Story.
Okay.
Because everybody has his or her own version of No Mas. And I said, this is my version, and it comes from being there, including in the dressing room. But going back to the fight with Sugar Ray Leonard and Tommy Hearns, I was on the announce team but I wasn't announcing. My job was to be there to get information to pass. The announce team was Marv Albert, Dr. Freddie Pacheco,
Okay.
and Don Dunphy. Now, Don Dunphy didn't like working with anybody. He wanted to work alone, and he was so good over the years and everything that he could call for working alone. He honored me a couple of years right about that time by calling me up and asking me, I'm doing a fight in Atlantic City. Would you announce with me? And I, excuse me? He wanted to announce with me. So that's one of my proudest moments. But
Wow.
in the production meeting that afternoon, Marv Albert, Dr. Freddie Pacheco, Don Dunphy, me, and our producer, Mike Weissman of NBC Sports. Back in those days, the executive producer of NBC Sports is Jay Weissman. Well, Michael was our producer, and he's going over how we should handle the opening and this and that. And Reddy, between rounds, if you don't mind, if you could possibly run over and get some information if we needed from the corner of Tommy Hearns and Sugar Ray. Yeah, no problem. All of a sudden, Don Dunphy, we were ending our production meeting. Don Dunphy turns and says, Freddie, I intend to do most of the talking on this telecast. You talk too much, and I really would appreciate if you keep quiet. Freddie Pacheco looked at him and said, what? He said, I'm as much a part of this broadcast team as you are. And raising his voice, Marv Albert pulled him back.
Oh, jeez.
And in his, he's, Freddie, take it easy, Freddie. Don Dunphy said, no, I listened to you and Marv, and you cut Marv off. You never give him a moment. You're always talking. You can't stop talking. He said, don't do that tonight. And Freddie Pacheco said, if you weren't so old, I would smack you. And Don Dunphy then pushed him, said, go ahead, take a shot.
Wow.
And with that, Mike Weissman rushed between them. Me and Marv are pulling Freddie back, and Mike Weissman is pulling Don Dunphy back. And when we got to ringside, they didn't even look at each other, but they did the opening together. And they made like nothing had happened. And I'm sitting there going, oh, my God, I hope this doesn't erupt. And Freddie, for the most part, didn't speak all that much, got the same paycheck.
Yeah.
And then when they announced, the winner by TKO Sugar, we were curious what the scorecards were. I jumped up in the ring and I asked the ring announcer, who was, I think, Chuck Hull. Chuck, can I just see those scorecards? He said, sure, Eddie. He lets me see them. I quickly pull them out of his hands, run back to ringside, jump out of the ring. I had the officials chasing me down. You can't be with her. So Marv Albert is looking out. We see that Tommy Hearns was coming on and was in the lead as the fight was stopped. And that Sugar Ray Leonard needed the knock. I mean, to me, that I think was basically the all-around highlight. But wow. We could do this all night because the night of in October of 1980, I was sitting ringside with Bert Sugar, and there was a lot going on that night. John Travolta, this is young John Travolta, who's rising very quickly as a star.
Mm-hmm.
Well, he and one or two of his team members got in because sitting behind us was the celebrity section. John Travolta walked in and nobody was stopping him. He gets into the press section. Now he's looking for a seat and he takes Angelo Dundee's stool.
Oh,
Oh, jeez.
It was enraging Bert Sugar. And he basically went over. He said, get up and get out of here. Go back to your press section, to your celebrity section. And Travolta's like, you know who I am?
no,
And Bert had some choice words for him. He said, you know, more importantly, do you know who I am? He said, I take guys like you and squash them. You don't belong here. Get out. And he threw Travolta out.
Wow.
jeez.
And I thought that Travolta was going to cry because Bert was about to pop him. And I mean, all the media, Dick Young from the Daily News and all the columns, look at you, Bert. 2 minutes later, Dick Young, who's sitting in front of me, we were like second row, he was first row. He turns around, hey, Randy, that girl over there is calling you. And I look, and my name's being called. And I said, oh, my God, you know who that girl is? Dick Young said, yeah. Is she calling you? Randy. And I'm like, me? It was Christie Brinkley.
Oh,
Come
gee.
on.
And I kept, me? You couldn't want me. And she, yeah.
Seriously.
I go over to Christie Brinkley and, hi, I'm Randy Gorge. Because I know I'm a big fight fan. I read Ring Magazine, blah, blah, blah.
Oh, jeez.
She said, look, Randy, can you get me a press ticket to shoot photos for you as your photographer? I said, you want to work for Ring Magazine? She said, yeah, on a freelance basis, but whenever there's a big fight, I'll go to the fight. I said, Christie, we can't afford you. Remember, at this time, it's 1980. She is the cover
she's
girl.
huge.
Oh, yeah.
Huge.
Well, she said, I'll tell you what, I'll pay my way. I'll pay the airfare. I will pay the hotel. I'll pay for my food. And when the fight is over, I'll take all the shots. I will give you the roll of film. You develop them. All I would ask is that you give me credit, photo credit by Christie Brinkley.
Seriously.
That's it? Yes. Here's my number. She gives me her number. I'll call you when we get home from Vegas. She goes and sits down with a smile on her face. I sit down with the biggest smile on my face. And Bert Sugar said, what the hell was that about? And I said, I just hired Christie Brinkley to be our photographer. He goes, you what? How much is that going to cost me? I said, Bert, this is what it's going to cost you. Well, very soon after that, there was the first fight she shot for me was actually the No Mas fight.
No kidding.
And you could go on to Google later and put Christie Brinkley at No Mas fight. You'll see her working in a paper dress. And she began going every single show to Totowa, to the ice world with me. She'd pick me up in the city, and then she would drive her sports car with me to Totowa. We'd walk in together. And it was in, I think, February of 1981. It was the Ring magazine with, I think Sugar Ray Robinson was on the cover, and we had the coverage of the No Mas fight. And we had Christie Brinkley's photos in there, and she had a picture of an ice pack being applied to Roberto Duran's stomach. Well, a friend of mine who is the current manager, has managed Deontay Wilder and many others, Shelley Finkel. Shelley Finkel was also a rock promoter, and he was promoting Billy Joel. And he got me in to meet Billy Joel, and Billy and I were talking. And I said, Billy, did you have a box at Walt Whitman High School in Huntington? He said, yeah, how do you know? I said, ballpark 1972, because you were in the ring. you had a head guard on, you had your ponytail coming down the back. And I just remembered your face because I was the next fighter to go up into the ring. So I got to sit there. I was standing there warming up, watching you, and I just stared at you. And then I became a disc jockey on Long Island. And it was about 2 years later, it was about 73, something like that. His first album, the Stranger album, came out. But while I was, it's funny, a referee is calling me right now. No, you can't do that.
Is it Kenny Bayless?
So anyway, he asks me in the dressing room after this concert of his, he said, I was reading Ring Magazine this month, and I saw photos by Christie Brinkley. That's not the Christie Brinkley, is it?
You gotta be kidding.
And I said, yeah. He said, what's her story?
Oh my God.
And I tell him, well, and we talked a little bit. He said, I'm going through a divorce. He said, do you think she'd go out with me? And I said, I don't know, but I'll call her. I said, tell you what, give me your number. I won't give out your number. And again, this is in 1980, 81.
Yeah.
He didn't have the following that he has now, but still had a big following.
But yeah, he was big at that time, yeah.
And with that, I called Christie like the next day, and I tell her that I'm at Billy Joel. He'd like to give you a call. She goes, okay, give me his number. I'll call him. P.S. The rest is history.
Yeah.
And they have never, never, never acknowledged that that's how they met. And they come up with the corniest stories. One of you guys could ask him, how'd you ever meet? Another one of you guys could ask him how they met. Another show.
Two different stories.
That's amazing. I'm actually looking.
I was engaged to Olivier Chandon from the Chandon Champagne fortune, which she was, and he did get killed in a car crash. She used that to say that her heart was broken, that she had to go down to the islands to get away. And it became the Bahamas. It became Aruba. It became the Seychelles Islands. And he says, well, I was going through a divorce, and they come up with the corniest stories of how they met, when in fact, I introduced them.
That's amazing. That's amazing.
So this is what my life has been.
Well, we've been talking for a little under an hour, and we got introductions from Muhammad Ali. We got phone calls from a comeback from George Foreman, introducing Billy Joel and Christie Brinkley.
I mean, he's throwing out names like we throw out the garbage.
Well, this is what my life has become, and I see over your shoulder, there's Sylvester Stallone.
Yeah.
Now, I'm very good friends to this day with Frank Stallone, his brother.
Oh, no kidding.
I was actually, do you remember Rocky IV when Rocky fights in Russia?
Yeah.
Against Ivan Drago.
Yeah.
The announcer who was on a USA microphone is Barry Tompkins.
Yeah.
It was supposed to be me.
Oh, no. Get out.
So in the mid-'80s, I'm in Atlantic City doing blow-by-blow on a fight card. Roberto Duran is on the card. I'm doing the card with my best friend, Gil Clancy. And sitting behind us, bunch of celebrities, including Sylvester Stallone, and sitting next to him is casino owner, fight promoter Donald Trump.
Oh.
And I did interviews with both guys. And Trump comes over and he does like a WWE routine with me. He goes, what do you want, Gordon?
Oh, my God.
Oh, Christ. You got to be kidding.
We had a fun interview. And to this day, I know that's out there somewhere, but I can't find it on YouTube. And I'm actually going to put something on. Does anybody have access to every single, have you taped footage of every fight? Are you one of those nut jobs?
Yeah.
If you do, I'd like to talk to you about the fight that took place in Atlantic City, Roberto Duran, in a meaningless fight that he won. Because if you do have it, I'd like to buy the tape from you, take you to dinner. It's still me interviewing, whether you're a Donald Trump fan or not. It's still me interviewing the
I
president.
pretend to have it.
Yeah.
The president of the United States in a very, very silly interview. I mean, and a few minutes later, over comes Sylvester Stallone. And I do a one-on-one interview with him. And then we get off. Sylvester Stallone here in Atlantic City. We'll be back with more after this. Boom. We get off, and Sylvester says, "Hey, why didn't you ever take that role I have for you in Rocky IV?" I look at him completely dumbfounded. Like, what role?
Yeah, really. Who denies a role in Rocky?
He said, I had written you in as the announcer holding a USA Network microphone. How come you didn't do it? I never heard. He said, let me find out. This is years later. And it turned out that he went back to the casting director, who basically didn't even remember, but I think she was like the agent or something, always a friend of Barry Tompkins, and decided to call Barry instead of me.
Oh,
And she said, I think that Mr. Gordon was busy that night. That we were going to be shooting. Like, give me a break. I wasn't going to be busy.
No.
Right?
So every time I see Rocky IV, I love Barry Tompkins, but Barry, that was supposed to be me in there that night.
Oh my God.
That's amazing.
That's amazing.
It really is. Oh my God. Well, like you said, Randy, we've been talking stuff that one of these instances would have happened to somebody would have made their lifetime. And you have more and more stories to tell. As obviously the book that you put up here, where The Glove Affair, you had so many stories that you had to write another book called Glove Story. Well, like that, we're going to have another time where you would be more than gracious to come on again, because
I'd love to.
Oh my God!
We can't have a 3-hour show, so But
what did I tell you in the very beginning?
Oh my goodness!
I said there is no way in this world 1 hour is going to sum up this man's life. Not even just the people that he's met and talked to.
Oh my God! I've been on planes flying to Vegas for big fights, for Sugar Ray Leonard fights. And one time with Bert Sugar, we got into a food fight on the plane. It was Bert Sugar and me against all these writers. They were throwing cheesecake. You imagine that today? The plane would land, we'd be in cuffs.
Yeah.
A major food fight on the plane. Major. Food flying all over the place.
Well, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Tony.
No, I was going to say we would love to have you back on, because I love the stories alone. Never mind the people that are in the stories. Donald Trump with a WWE type of intro, and Billy Joel and Christie Brinkley, and I mean George Foreman grills coming to your house. It's just it just keeps going. But we can't thank you enough for coming.
That has been Evander Holyfield sleeping over my house, and the kids. My kids leaked it out. I said, nobody is to tell anybody. But that's for another time. But I got to tell you, it's been my pleasure joining you guys here.
Thank you so much, Randy. We would be remiss if we did not mention you're going to be inducted into the September 27th, the Atlantic City Boxing Hall of Fame. We definitely wanted to bring that up. And congratulations on that. And folks, I'm telling you, I have watched Randy on Randy's Ringside on Facebook Live. If you want to know anything about boxing, this is the man to listen to. He'll set you straight.
We're going to be doing it tonight, 8:30 tonight on Randy's Ringside.
8:30 tonight.
Yeah.
I try to do that 5 nights a week, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. But, there's a lot of nights that Queen Ronnie and I go out to dinner. We live in a brand new condo that we moved into a year ago. And we just have so many new friends to add to our old friends.
Right.
And it's like dinner haven, and I'm trying to do my best to lose about 10 more pounds before the induction. It's kind of tough.
And don't forget your Mets nights.
Of
We go
course.
to a lot of New York Mets games. I never have had ulcers, but this could be the year that I get some ulcers.
Well, I'm going to be going to a Syracuse Mets game next week because we're the farm club for the New York Mets.
There you go. There you go. Well, Randy, like we said, thank you so much again. And please, we definitely will have to have you back on. I want to hear more stories.
Guys, call me anytime, text me anytime. I'll get back to you. Two of my new friends right there. So, I mean, you guys got a great show.
Thank you.
I'm going to make sure that I put it up, that I talk about it, not just with me, but anytime you want me to publicize it, you just let me know. I will be talking.
Thank you so much, Randy. That's so kind of you. Really, I mean,
Thank you very much.
You know, this is why we like to interview people like yourself. You're down to earth. You're real. You're not, this phony come on. And that's how come you've been so successful in your career as well, because you're just who you are.
Yeah.
And people can respect that and love that.
You know what I'm worried about?
What's that?
I'm worried that when I get up from my 10-minute induction speech at the Atlantic City Boxing Hall of Fame, I'm going to cry my way through it.
Yeah, you probably will, but it'd be well deserved. Well deserved.
That's okay. That's okay. It's who you are.
I can't.
Who you are.
All right.
So I think I'm going to take it in a certain way that's going to make people laugh and make me laugh, and then it'll be over.
No tears.
Because if I just tell people how lucky I am,
you might have to try to plan something around that. Maybe after the induction, which is the end of September. Maybe we'll do something in October to have more stories to tell.
I'm here for you guys all the time. I promise you that.
Thanks again, Randy. Appreciate you coming on. Thank you.
It's been my absolute honor.
Have a good night. Thank you very much.
Oh my goodness! Like he ended with Evander Holyfield sleeping over at the house.
I think I have to have my jaw wired shut. It was hanging open the most.
Oh my God!
Are you kidding me right now?
Sylvester Stallone now. I mean, I forgot to put this one up there where Jerry Cooney took the Time magazine picture with.
We didn't even get to talk to him, about his serious radio show that is national. Yeah. Well, like we said, we'll have him on again. We'll talk some more. I would love to. I mean, I could just listen to him all day long. I mean, those types of stories, you can't. I mean, I can't. I'm going to get the book tonight. I'm going on Amazon right now. I can't wait to read them. I mean, I know you and I are not big Facebook guys.
Yeah.
But go on Randy's Ringside on Facebook. He'll be live.
Right. Tonight?
8:30, 8:45-ish.
All right.
And he's Monday, typically Monday through Friday.
Right.
And he will talk boxing. And there is no question about it.
Well, you've
the
heard
man knows what the man knows.
We hope you enjoyed this episode as much as we did. So, go on Facebook, listen to him, check it out, and watch for him to come back because we're going to have a Randy Commish Gordon Part 2.
Absolutely.
Thanks for watching, guys. We appreciate it. Have a good week.
Take